Tonight, the Ukrainian president leaves the White House early after a fiery meeting with Donald Trump.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III.
Hello, I'm Nakari Thorpe. This is ABC News. A Thai hostage speaks exclusively to ABC on his 15 months in captivity with Hamas militants. A government-led pill testing trial gets underway for the first time in New South Wales. And thousands descend on Sydney's streets to celebrate the city's 47th Mardi Gras parade. Talks between the US and Ukrainian presidents have been cut short after an extraordinary verbal clash in Washington. Donald Trump accused Volodymyr Zelensky of being disrespectful and ungrateful before kicking him out of the White House. The blow-up between the two leaders is creating further uncertainty over peace negotiations.
What started out as a fairly cordial meeting became openly hostile inside the Oval Office.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. Right now,
Volodymyr Zelensky had been pushing Donald Trump to provide security guarantees as part of a critical minerals deal, urging the US president not to trust Russia's leader, Vladimir Putin, to honour a peace agreement.
You have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless. God bless. You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
The Ukrainian ambassador to Washington becoming visibly emotional as tensions in the room escalated.
You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful.
With a lunch and a joint press conference hastily cancelled, Mr Zelensky was told to leave the White House. Donald Trump arguing he could return when he's ready for peace.
I would say it didn't work out exactly great from his standpoint. I think he very much overplayed his hand.
This was such a high-stakes moment for Volodymyr Zelensky, what was supposed to be a significant step towards improving his relationship with the Trump White House, instead resulting in a spectacular breakdown. The Ukrainian president insisted he was thankful for America's support, but refused to back down on his key demand.
We are ready for peace, but we have to be in strong position. What does it mean? Just to know that our army is strong, that our partners with us, and that we have security guarantees.
The Prime Minister has joined European leaders in reiterating Australia's support for Ukraine.
We will continue to stand with Ukraine for as long as it takes, because this is the struggle of a democratic nation versus an authoritarian regime.
But in the US, reaction was largely split down party lines.
What you watched was American power being destroyed in the world as everybody watches President Trump become a lapdog for a brutal dictator in Moscow.
What I saw in the Oval Office was disrespectful, and I don't know if we can ever do business with Zelensky again.
As Donald Trump spends the weekend in Florida, the future of the minerals deal remains uncertain. So too the status of a relationship that has so far kept Ukraine in the fight. Jade McMillan, ABC News, Washington.
Well, from Washington, President Zelensky will fly to London to meet with European leaders, and he'll be hoping for practical shows of support and unity. North America correspondent Carrington Clark has more.
Donald Trump might have described it as good TV, but it's a terrible day for the relationship between the United States and Ukraine. What occurred in the Oval Office today was historic. The room may have seen its share of heated arguments over the years, but never between the leaders of two supposedly friendly countries in front of the world's media. There were tensions heading into the meeting after Donald Trump publicly denigrated President Zelensky as a dictator. But even still, the expectation was that the norms of diplomacy would be respected. Instead, Trump critics will say that the United States ambushed President Zelensky, Critics of President Zelensky will say that his repeated corrections of his American hosts were rude. But however the blame is assigned, the only winner out of today's blow-up is Russia's leader, Vladimir Putin. Ukraine's defence against Russia has rested in large part on American assistance, and now Donald Trump won't even publicly pick a side. The words of support from European leaders for Ukraine will be welcome, but what Ukraine really needs is material support, particularly heavy weaponry. If America no longer has Ukraine's back, then Europe must decide if it will step into the breach.
Well, glitter, parties and pride, the 2025 Sydney Gay and Lesbian Mardi Gras Parade is about to begin. This year marks the event's 47th anniversary. It's one of the city's most colourful nights, bringing thousands of people marching into the streets. Sean Tarrant Goodwin is at the event tonight. Sean, the parade is minutes away. What can we expect in this year's celebration?
Well, the Mardi Gras is one of the biggest events on Sydney's calendar, drawing hundreds of thousands of people here into the city centre. 10,000 people will march down Oxford Street across 180 floats. Those represent a range of community groups and organisations. They've been touching up the glitter, polishing off the dance moves, and they say they're excited to put on a show.
And I'm on a float and I'm a bluebird and it's all about freedom and it's all about liberation.
Mardi Gras to me, it just means proud. You're proud in your identity as your cultural heritage, your sexual identity.
All bling bling, shining, and just having a great time with our choreography.
And Sean, each year Mardi Gras has a different theme. What is the message for the 2025 event?
Well, this year's theme is free to be, and organisers say that that's an acknowledgement of the achievements of LGBT people over time and also an acknowledgement of the struggles that are ongoing. There was a move this year to ban New South Wales police from marching in this year's parade, but they will participate and they'll wear corporate shirts as opposed to their own uniforms. The parade continues until 10:30 tonight, but as we know, for many people, that's just when the party gets started and will continue into the night and the early hours of the morning.
OK, Sean Tarrant Goodwin, thanks so much. And Jeremy Fernandez is on the parade route where crowds are lining the street. Jeremy, what's the atmosphere like?
Nakari, Sydney is about to throw its arms open for one of the most magical nights of the year, particularly for the LGBTQIA+ community. Every colour of the rainbow you could possibly imagine is represented here tonight for what is Sydney's second biggest celebration after New Year's Eve. Some 200,000 people have lined the 1.7 kilometre route between Hyde Park and Moore Park. Some of them are first-timers, others who've been here since the very, very beginning, the very first Mardi Gras in 1978. The excitement, as you can see, has been building for hours, and Sydney is just this close to throwing its arms around these people for what is the most spectacular celebration of love, acceptance and freedom. Nakari.
Jeremy Fernandez in Darlinghurst, thank you. Well, partygoers in the Illawarra are having their drugs tested without fear of prosecution. It comes as the state's first pill testing trial gets underway at the Yours and Ours Music Festival.
It's free and anonymous. A chance for people to know what they're consuming when taking drugs.
This is by no means a green light to illicit drug use.
But police will be turning their backs on this white tent over the next 2 days.
It's a discreet entrance. People outside of the tent won't know if they're going in to visit, the safe space and medical centre, or they're going to visit the drug testing.
It's a 10-minute process, allowing patrons to get their drugs checked while also receiving harm reduction advice.
It would be great if they never used illicit drugs at all, but the likelihood of that ever happening, as we know, is very, very remote.
6 years ago, Jenny Ross King's 19-year-old daughter Alex died from an MDMA overdose at a music festival in Sydney. She now advocates for drug-checking services.
Well, it's one-on-one education, isn't it, at a point when a young person is about to potentially consume drugs.
New South Wales opposition leader Mark Speakman has stood by his previous comments, stating pill testing offers false hope and risks normalising drug use. A 2019 coronial inquest into 6 festival deaths found enough evidence to support a drug-checking trial, noting its potential to encourage positive behaviour, such as discarding dangerous substances.
The bottom line is it could save a young person's life.
Over the next 2 days, 30,000 people are expected to attend the Yours and Ours festival.
What do you think in terms of the pill testing concept?
I think it's really good. I think if you, I don't think that police management really is the way to go.
You can't really stop it. So if you can make sure they're taking what they think they're taking, I think that's a lot safer for everyone.
The 12-month trial will also gather data on drug types and consumption. Digby Worthmoller, ABC News, Sydney.
Residents throughout New South Wales are being warned of the smoke from a number of hazard reduction burns this weekend. Prescribed burns were carried out on the South Coast, Tweed, Hunter, Hawkesbury, Northern Beaches, Hornsby, Sutherland and the Southern Highlands areas. New South Wales Health is urging vulnerable people to take precautions due to the poor air quality. The Rural Fire Service says the smoke should clear by Monday. The excise charged on draft beer will be frozen for the next 2 years, but it will save many drinkers less than a cent per pint. The tax makes up about 80 cents of the cost of a $10 pint and usually lifts twice a year. The federal government says it'll be frozen from August to provide some relief to brewers, pubs and beer drinkers. It's been immediately matched by the opposition. Anthony Albanese says if the price of a beer goes up, excise won't be the cause.
If it does, then no one can blame the government because we're freezing that cost for 2 years.
The global shipping industry is responsible for 3% of global emissions each year, but an Australian shipbuilder is hoping to change that. Incat, a Tasmanian company, is building what will be the world's biggest electric ferry, and they think it's just the beginning.
This is no ordinary ship. I'm standing on the bow of what's soon to be the world's largest electric ferry. It's being built here in this shipyard in Hobart, Tasmania.
The shipbuilders behind this world-first project, Incat, are renowned for their lightweight aluminium ships.
As you can see, the ships are getting bigger.
The company's founder, Robert Clifford, has never been afraid of testing new waters.
And how big of a risk is it to go all in on the fully electric ship?
I don't see it as a risk at all. The risk would be that if we tried to stay with fossil-powered fuels, we would run out of the market. That's the big risk. And it is exciting to be leading the world with electric propulsion.
Incat's aluminium ships weigh around half of what a traditional steel ship would.
Lightweight construction and electricity go together because less power is needed. Not only less power, but most importantly, less charging time.
Hull 96 was originally designed to be powered by gas engines, but during a pause in construction in the midst of the pandemic, the South American customer Bookabus had a change of heart and asked for an electric ferry instead. The ferry will travel between Argentina's capital, Buenos Aires, to Colonia del Sacramento, Uruguay, carrying 2,100 passengers and 225 cars. It'll transport commuters 30 nautical miles, or about 55 kilometres, across the River Plate 3 times a day. To make the hour-long journey, it's going to need some serious batteries. There's over 5,000 battery modules that weigh 280 tonnes. That's the equivalent of about 860 average-size electric vehicle batteries. Despite this weight, Incat's CEO says the ship is lighter than traditional diesel-powered ferries.
But think of 8 diesel engines and all the fuel tanks we need to power those, compared to the batteries themselves, which are charged from the shore side every time the boat docks.
While this electric ferry shows what can be done over short distances, there are questions on whether ships with longer journeys can do the same.
The ships that we build here at Incat, we're focusing on the 100 nautical miles or less. The large cargo tankers, I think, have bigger challenges to face.
The global shipping industry has a goal of reaching net zero emissions by 2050. It's a tough ask for an industry that accounts for 3% of global emissions. But if they can pull this off, it might just be possible.
Jess Davis, ABC News, Hobart.
The Vatican says Pope Francis had a peaceful night and is resting after suffering an isolated breathing crisis on Friday afternoon. The 88-year-old's condition suddenly worsened yesterday. He suffered a coughing fit, which led to an episode of vomiting and had to have his lungs cleared of fluid. The Vatican said he was receiving gas through a mask to help him breathe. The pontiff has spent over 2 weeks in hospital battling pneumonia. Violent clashes have erupted between riot police and demonstrators outside the Greek parliament in Athens. More than 300,000 people protested around the country, demanding justice and accountability for what went wrong in Greece's deadliest train crash.
Fury and fire on the streets outside the Greek parliament in Athens. What started as a peaceful protest turned violent when some of the demonstrators threw petrol bombs, hurled projectiles and tried to storm barricades. Thousands of riot police were already on standby. Their response, firing water cannon and tear gas. This was the largest protest Athens had seen in years, and one of many across Greece to mark the second anniversary of the country's worst rail disaster. 57 people died when a passenger train filled with students collided with a freight train.
For 2 years now, we've been living in an abyss of pain, loss and injustice.
Anger in Greece rose after an inquiry this week revealed the safety issues that caused the crash have not yet been addressed. A separate judicial investigation remains unfinished and no one has been convicted.
We feel angry. Angry for the fact that 57 souls lost their lives unfairly for the profits of the few.
We want to send a message to the government and the employers that we will not tolerate going to work, not knowing if we're going to come back home alive.
Greece's government has faced criticism for failing to launch a parliamentary inquiry into the crash. It says it's up to the judiciary to investigate, but is already working to make the country's rail network safer. Mazoe Ford, ABC News.
Mediators have asked for more time to negotiate the future of the Gaza ceasefire, with phase 1 of the agreement set to expire on Saturday. Under the terms of the deal, fighting will not resume while talks are underway, but there are reported differences in what the two sides want next. Israel has been negotiating to extend phase 1, which put the war on pause, saw hostages and prisoners freed and enabled more aid into Gaza. But Hamas wants to move to phase 2, which was supposed to bring an end to the war, the return of all remaining hostages who are alive and the withdrawal of Israeli troops from Gaza. A Thai hostage kidnapped by Hamas militants for nearly 500 days and released on January 30 has spoken about his time in captivity for the first time ever. Erin Hanley has this exclusive report.
Banawat Seytao left his village to build a better future for his family. Instead, he encountered the horrors of war. Banawat was one of 30,000 Thai workers in Israel at the time of the October 7 attacks, and he was one of 251 hostages taken by Hamas.
They chased me and kept shooting. I could see the impact of the bullets kicking up the dirt. They shot here and here.
Banawat avoided death, but spent the next 15 months in captivity. He says his captors moved him multiple times and threatened to kill him if he tried to escape.
We told them, we are Thais. We did nothing wrong. Why have they detained us? It was like we were locked in prison without committing a crime.
As the conflict raged on, many of the foreign hostages were released. But Banawat had to wait until January this year before he was freed. In captivity, he lost hope of ever seeing his wife again or meeting their newborn child.
I never held my daughter's hands.
I was so worried. I was stressed.
After his freedom was secured, it took another 10 days before he was reunited with his family in February.
I missed them so much. I felt so sad and could not believe it. I broke down and cried.
A father now back where he belongs, rebuilding a family torn apart by a foreign war. Erin Handley, ABC News.
US investigators say the bodies of actor Gene Hackman and his wife Betsy Arakawa have tested negative for carbon monoxide. An initial autopsy has found no apparent signs of foul play or external trauma. Data from Hackman's pacemaker shows he likely died more than a week before his body was found. A maintenance worker spotted the couple on the ground in their New Mexico home on Wednesday. Their German Shepherd was also found dead in a kennel. Authorities say evidence has been collected, including mobile phones, medication, medical records and a 2025 planning calendar. Well, today marks 50 years since colour TV was introduced in Australia. The ABC was the first to broadcast in colour, but only by 30 seconds, thanks to a cheeky bit of broadcasting magic from a comedy program. James Viber reports.
This was the moment when TV in Australia changed forever.
Honey Jack, the colour! It's leaking through the window! Dude, a filthy thing all over my new carpet!
Murphy and I wrote this sketch which was about colour television, and the premise was that Auntie Jack hated colour. She refused to turn to colour.
I'll try and hold it down.
Something of a maverick in the 70s, Graham Bond was surprised when asked to bring Auntie into colour.
The ABC wants you to introduce colour television. I went, you're kidding, they hate my guts.
True to form, Auntie Jack had a trick up her sleeve.
Well, we didn't do it on March the 1st. See, we did it on the 28th of February at 11:59 and 30 seconds. We beat Channel 9, Channel 10, Channel 7.
The changeover felt decidedly 70s on the commercial networks. After a testing phase, Australia was excited to finally see its favourite shows in colour.
We definitely had FOMO, as the rest of the world had caught on a lot quicker than us. If you went to the TV guide, you had to check if it had the C next to the program, and if it didn't, it meant it was still in black and white. So we were still catching up.
Australia had to build up the colour TV industry on and off screen to meet demand.
Australian audiences were waiting so long for colour TV that they lapped it up really quickly, so sales went through the roofs.
Today, more than 1/3 of Melbourne's TV homes, 36% to the end of last month, have colour TV.
Audiences watched their first colour ABC News bulletin in 1975 and have been doing so ever since. But it was Auntie's auntie that started it all.
Hey Jack, you've gone coloured. Why not, Arthur? It was only a big joke.
James Viver, ABC News.
The world's #1 women's rugby league side, the Jillaroos, are set to face an unfamiliar opponent in tomorrow's NRL Las Vegas matches. Australia hasn't played England since 2017, and the two sides are prepared for a history-making test match.
Australia and England are busting their moves in Vegas in front of a huge American audience.
Imagine their reaction when they see our Jillaroos giving the same product. Great hits, spectacular tries. Vegas will go viral with the women's game.
Women's sport is being played for the first time at the Allegiant Stadium with a primetime test match.
It's a historical game for women, especially rugby league, and I think it's important for us to put the game on that platform.
England have made strides in women's rugby league, setting up a 12-team competition similar to our NRLW.
There's a big gap between the strength of our competition and what they've got over in England.
I've got a healthy respect for the Jillaroos. They're the world champions for a reason, but to pit ourselves against them so we know exactly where we're at and what we need to work on will be a great experience.
The Gillaroos' preparation was interrupted by an investigation into former coach Brad Donald over an alleged disparaging comments about a journalist. He resigned and interim coach Jess Skinner has taken over.
All the players totally respect that, but I think they've moved on with the change, and I don't think it'll affect their game.
The action starts tomorrow after a whirlwind build-up, which saw thousands of fans taking over the famous Fremont Street, celebrating rugby league. Bindi Bryce, ABC News.
Well, young female athletes from a small town in Colombia have spent time in Australia as part of a football exchange program. They trained with professional and local AFLW clubs, learning leadership and ball skills.
Growing up in Colombia, Lena Montano had never heard of Aussie rules, but now the sport could help shape her future.
It's a sport that I had no idea it existed when I was in Colombia, and now I cannot love it more.
She was one of 9 young women from the small town of Puerto de Jara who were here in Australia for a football exchange program. It's part of a Colombian embassy initiative that aims to use sport as a tool for social change. Over 2,000 young people have been involved since its inception in 2011 across different sports too, like BMX, surfing and rugby.
The girls are leaders in their communities. They are amazing in doing communitary projects, for example, to reduce, let's say, gang involvement, to reduce drug use, drug consumption, drug trafficking, etc. I have loved receiving tools that could strengthen my leadership capacities, that are empowering me as a young women leader.
The group spent 2 weeks travelling around Melbourne and Sydney, learning about leadership and social inclusion, empowerment of women through sport, and spending time with local and professional Aussie rules clubs.
To learn that there was a sport in the world, that it was possible to play a type of football with your hands and with your feet. I believe that everyone should know more about this.
And while the main purpose of the program is not to become AFLW players, it's hoped one day some of the participants might be back in Australia for that exact reason.
I see myself doing it in the future. I would love to.
For now, they go home with skills that set them up for the future. Sally Ann Young, ABC News.
The Illawarra Hawks have an NBL championship in sight after beating the South East Melbourne Phoenix 101-94 in the NBL playoff series last night. The Phoenix were well on top during the first half, piling on 34 points in the second period alone. But after the break, the Hawks regained control thanks to the work of Tyler Harvey and Trey Kell, who added 24 points each. Game 2 is set for tomorrow afternoon at John Cain Arena. Well, it's time to take a look at the weather now. It was warm across Sydney today. It started off cloudy, becoming sunny in the afternoon, though it was fairly smoky due to the hazard reduction burns. The city reached a top of 29-34 in the west. Overnight temperatures were about average across most of the state, though it was a warm night in the far west. It warmed up to the low 40s during the day there, while temperatures hovered around the 30 degrees on the coast. On today's satellite, severe tropical cyclone Alfred is sitting northeast of Rockhampton, bringing cloud and unsettled conditions to central and southern parts of Queensland, while an upper trough is passing through South Australia. On tomorrow's chart, a broad trough will move through northwest New South Wales, while another is weakening over central parts of the state. Around the country tomorrow, a shower or two in Brisbane and Melbourne, partly cloudy for Hobart and Adelaide, sunny in Perth. For the northeast, partly cloudy along much of the coast, a slight chance of a shower in parts of the northern rivers, possible storms for parts of the Hunter. In the southeast, the chance of showers for the Illawarra and parts of the south coast, the chance of thunderstorms for parts of the southern and central tablelands. A warm day in the west, some patchy cloud expected for the north and south. There could be some storms for parts of the Riverina. Off the coast, winds will be northerly, reaching up to 25 knots, seas up to 2 metres. In Sydney tomorrow, it will be partly cloudy with possible showers developing in the afternoon. The chance of storms in the outer west. A top of 28 in the city, 32 in Penrith and Richmond. The sun will rise at 6:43 a.m. And looking further ahead, cloudy and a shower or two on Monday. A top of 26 in the city, 27 in the west. Possible showers are expected for the rest of the week. Well, that's all from ABC News for now. You can stay across the latest both on our website and on the ABC News app. Enjoy the rest of your evening.